our system is in too many ways broken. The cost that we are on is far from sustainable. We need to ensure that incarceration is used to punish, to deter, and to rehabilitate, but not merely to warehouse and to forget. Too many Americans go to too many prisons for far too long and for no truly good law enforcement reason.
The Obama administration aiming to reduce the nation's prison population by changing the way it charges nonviolent criminals. We have Devlin Barrett join us right now from Washington, D.C. with the details. Hi, Devlin. We were just listening.
Hi, Wendy.
Hey, we were listening to Attorney General Eric Holder just a moment ago talk about sort of what he sees and the Obama administration sees as the problem with overcrowding in prisons and wanting to reduce the amount of the prison population. What's the meat of the administration's proposal?
The most important thing that they're proposing in terms of actually reducing that population is to charge differently at the outset of cases. What you have now in the federal system is, particularly in drug cases, you have what's called mandatory minimum, which means for certain crimes, if you are convicted of that crime, it almost doesn't matter what the facts of the case are beyond the conviction, because you will face a hard minimum. So for instance, if you're found guilty of possession of more than 5 kilograms of cocaine with intent to sell, that's an automatic 10 years or more, and there's no getting around that. What the Justice Department is saying now is, okay, going forward, don't charge the amount in the original charging of the case, and let the case play out and let the judge decide at the back end if it's the kind of case that does deserve a mandatory 10 years or more. But let the trial play out further before you decide right at the opening that it deserves that kind of prison time.
So that's the how of how they want to achieve this. Let's talk about the why. Where does the U.S. stack up, Devlin, in terms of incarceration rates with the rest of the world?
Well, the U.S. incarcerates way more people than almost any other country. And they do incarcerate more people than any other country, and they incarcerate them in expensive and frankly long-term ways. And one of the things, for example, about $80 billion a year is estimated that the U.S. spends incarcerating people. The U.S. has about 5% of the world's population, and we incarcerate about 25% of the world's prisoners.
At the state level, policymakers have already been enacting reforms in the past 3 years, and they estimate they could avert more than $4 billion in prison costs. That's according to the Pew Charitable Trust. Many different states, South Dakota to Georgia to West Virginia. Let's talk about how politics will play into this, Devlin, because Republicans typically, being very strong on a message of tough on crime, but they're also now coming up they have a message of being tough on budgets. So are they going to get behind this, you think?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating, I think, a fascinating moment in the politics of crime. I grew up in an era when, Republicans were tough on crime, and Republicans in races against Democrats would often try to paint the Democrats as soft on crime. What you're seeing now is that both on the left and the right, there are different reasons to seek the same thing, and that's the reduction of the prison population. On the left, it's a belief that these are overly punitive processes that are overly unfair to black defendants and minority defendants. And on the right, you're seeing a real increase in a desire to get the prison budgets down, because in a lot of states, it is a rapidly expanding cost. And a lot of budget cutters just want to get that number down any way they can. And so they're embracing the same thing for frankly different reasons, but it's interesting. It's a real area of bipartisan agreement on some level. And
the next step is what, Devlin? I mean, the administration can just enact this? There is no need for congressional approval of these changes.
Right. What Holder is proposing, he can do on his own now. It'll be interesting to see how well the system itself adapts to what Holder is suggesting, because there's a lot of incentives built in the system to charge more. But he's also calling for support of legislation that a number of lawmakers have offered in both parties that would take it further. And we'll see if, as much as the politics of this has changed, does that mean that they have enough votes now of lawmakers who aren't afraid of being called soft on crime.
All right. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it, Devlin.